Good morning, everyone. I'll turn my little chill music off. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Conservative Podcast Daily. Still sounds a bit strange to say that. Sorry. Every time I start my podcast, for those who watch me, I get this old fella. Not old, he's young, but he always bounces around my legs whenever I start talking. Very soon he'll be up in the background on that couch. There he goes. That's my co-star. All right. Welcome to another day of the Eureka Conservative Podcast. It was a bit harder to get up this morning, but we did it. So, as usual, we'll give you a bit of a look at Port Phillip Bay. I'll get a bit higher today. Yesterday was... So, that is the bay. Apparently, we're looking for tougher weather tomorrow. It's going to be a lot more rain. So the last of a good period of some wintry, beautiful days. The bay's a pond, which is always a good sign. Pretty clear skies, a bit of cloud, nothing much. That's Melbourne on a wintry day. So he's back. He's back to say good day, my boy. So, that is Melbourne. The weather has been... Oh, sorry. I'm just going to get my laptop off, I've got to disconnect everything, and then it all falls down the back of my desk. So anyway, my little ritual I go through in the mornings. So, we had a successful launch yesterday. As you can tell, everything here is done on the cheap. But we have I have a bit of fun with it. Hopefully one day I can say when we get this, along with other things, up and going with my business and the company that we're trying to establish. And like any person out there trying to establish something, it takes a period. So I've done this twice before, done it successfully, but not so much as a private business, more as a non-profit group. But I've established two quite large organisations that generated significant revenue. So now trying to do it as a private company. And we'll see how we go. And hopefully we can incorporate into that going forward. The dream is to get a proper studio. And as you can tell, I need a producer in the background. And we do these each morning. So Monday to Friday. So I'm not looking at this being a short-term thing. It may end up being, because you've got to make it successful. It's got to earn $1. And I'm not talking my podcast. I'm talking my business. The podcast is something I do to enjoy, to get things off my chest. I enjoy the political to and fro, the debate. But it's also very therapeutic, I've found, since started doing it. First, I wasn't too sure whether I wanted to do it. But I found it very therapeutic because I've actually met people I've never met before online, to the point with today's society. I haven't met him in person, but got to build a relationship in time through the podcast, which is it's good, but it's strange too at the same time. It's not as a person who spent their youth in the 80s and 90s, where to build relationships it had to be in person. Now we're living in a time where you can do it over the net, thanks to bloody COVID, probably more than anything else. Anyway, let's get on with it. First thing, the old Bible passage. We do that every morning before we get my little contribution to Christianity. Even if you don't believe in it, you should have a listen to these things, and it can help you maybe with decisions later on in your life, or right now if you're going through those times, get a better understanding of it. And most people who are atheist, and even me, like me, who are poor Christians, don't have an understanding of the faith they say they belong to. I'm guilty of that. There's so much to the Christian faith, especially the Catholic faith, that you keep discovering, which we discovered yesterday about the pole and the snake. So anyway, let's get into it. The necessity of belief, speaking of, July 21st, John 3:14 through 21. John picks up the well-known Old Testament incident to teach about faith in Jesus. Judgment will be based on this. As Moses lifted up the bronze snake on a pole, which we talked about yesterday in the desert, in the same way the Son of Man must be lifted up, so that everyone who believes in him may have eternal life. For God loved the world so much that he gave his only Son, so that everyone who believes in him may not die but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to be its judge, but to be its Saviour. Whoever believes in the Son is not judged, but whoever does not believe has already been judged. You atheists, look out. Because he has not believed in God's only Son. This is how the judgment works. The light has come into the world, but people love the darkness rather than the light, because their deeds are evil. Anyone who does evil things hates the light and will not come to the light, because he does not want his evil deeds to be shown up. But whoever does what is true comes to the light in order that the light may show what he did was in obedience to God. It's pretty powerful, to the point. If you're an atheist, you're a lot of crap. If you're a Muslim, and you hear this all the time. I'm sorry, I'm only going by you have your Quran, we have our Bible, but they don't acknowledge Jesus as the Son of God. So by that passage, they're in a bit of trouble. And that's coming from a person who existed a long, long time before Islam was even a thing. So, and that's a person who lived with Jesus, was taught by Jesus, traveled with Jesus. So, it's a personal account of his teaching. So, you got to choose to believe, as it says in there, to come to the light. But I think there's a lot more to it. And this is the old Catholic versus Protestant attitude. I have this argument with one of my brothers all the time. If you acknowledge Christ as the Son of God and you believe in him, then you're going to heaven. I'm not. I think a lot of people use that as a get out of jail card. I'm far more into the belief that the Catholic Church teach. It's not just believing in the Son of God, but it's your actions on the planet that will decide how you progress. I do believe believing in God is defined by your actions in this life. And I have a few, I think, ticks in my book, and I definitely have a few crosses. We'll see how we go. But in the end, it's all about belief, and you either got it or you don't. And most of that time is a choice, and you can go searching for that faith, or you cannot. If you're a person on that journey, I was until I was 27. You've got to keep searching to figure out what you want to believe in, and then you've got to be content with it. But just don't say you're not a Christian, for example. Let us say, and fairy dust and pixies and the thing, or that sort of thing. Do some research and read the Bible. That's what changed me. I just read the New Testament. So anyway, enough of that. Time to get into what is politics, and what has still been a big, big factor in the last day or two has been all the Pauline Hanson setup. And I call it a setup now. after I watched with James Ashby on Paul Murray last night. There was a clip on it. I don't watch Paul Murray. I can't stand Paul Murray. I really can't. But there was a clip this morning on X, which we'll get up in a minute. And apparently that interview with Tommy Robinson was a setup. Now, again, it's a bit like faith. You've got to decide who you're going to believe in here. But do you believe mainstream media who pushed the COVID vaccine and all the restrictions during COVID on us? Do you believe the politicians in the major parties that have been misleading us for my entire life, pretty much, but especially since Rudd came to office? I mean, you could always pick when a politician misleads you with misinformation and lies, but it was pretty obvious before Rudd. After Rudd, it became Rudd came in because he is a devious, lying bastard, and as was Gillard, I think Abbott was far more decent than most of them. He might have had his problems, but he was far more decent than most. And we've had a conga line ever since of just deceitful bastards in that office. And we've probably got the most deceitful bastard sitting in the current office that we've ever had. So I choose to have a little bit more faith in Pauline Hanson and One Nation. Pauline definitely has her faults. She is a hard listen. I'm probably a hard listen too. But she doesn't get out of thoughts as coherently as she would like. Even she admits to that. There's a lot of stuttering and back and forth, and I think she suffers a little bit of nerves, which is understandable. You've got the whole world coming for you all the time. But I think she's a legitimate person with a deep love of this country who's doing the best she can. And her best is pretty impressive at the moment. So I'd much rather trust Pauline than most politicians. Does she get it right every time? No. But is she genuine? Yes. I think Pauline is very genuine. But again, that's, people don't want to believe that. People want to believe the attack lines of the media and the major parties. Let's have a listen here to James Ashby last night, and let's see what he's got to say, because I think this is really important if it's true. And I'm not too sure.
You posted on the Facebook page of Pauline Hanson's.
All right. So I'm not too sure about James. I don't know him well enough. Don't want to make a judgment. He's been in the background for the One Nation for quite some time. Every time I hear him speak, he's pretty good. What gives me a bit of doubts about him is what's happening here in Victoria with One Nation. Why are they jumping all over these polls? We've got about 18 weeks before the next election, which is no time in politics. And we don't have any candidates. We don't have any policy. We don't have any opposition cabinet. We don't have an opposition treasurer, an opposition leader. They are leading or equal leading in the polls at the moment. I think there should be a lot more action happening. But, they might not have enough staff. I don't know enough of the background. So anyway, when he speaks well. Let's have a listen.
You posted on the Facebook page of Pauline Hanson's Please Explain today what the pitch to Channel 7 was, and it's a little different than what we actually got, right?
Yeah, correct. Channel 7 made that pitch back in November last year and made it very clear they wanted a program on immigration, pure and simple. There was nothing of what we saw last night in that pitch. And so, yeah, it was somewhat of a stitch-up, but I think it was a bit of an own goal for Spotlight. I don't think it did the damage that they hoped it would do.
Now, of all of the reaction that I've heard from people over the past 24 hours, there's one question in particular that I want to show and get your response to it, because I'd love to know what Pauline was saying after this interview took place. And it was this question that was asked of Barnaby Joyce, but it's one that I can't imagine being asked of any other political leader, that, of course, being a basic competency here. First, let's show everyone.
Barnaby, does she have the intellectual capacity to handle that top job?
Yes.
What was the reaction that you had to that question? Barnaby played the straight bat, of course, that he should, but what do you think?
Well, again, this came down to a stitch-up. This had nothing to do with immigration. It had everything to do with trying to call into question Pauline's capability of not only running a political party, but running a country. And I think when you compare both Pauline Hanson and Anthony Albanese, I would take Pauline Hanson any day of the week. with her intellectual capacity, her ability to run businesses successfully. And she's done things tough in her time, but she's proven that resilience is key. And I do believe she's got the best interest of this country at heart. That's what makes a good leader for Australia.
How did the Tommy Robinson thing happen? Who invited who knew what, and who set up what?
There was no indication that we'd be doing an interview with Tommy Robinson. I could send you the itinerary for the trip. It didn't include Tommy. When Nigel Farage stepped down, there was a moment there where the producer, Luke Mortimer, was quite concerned that the whole trip was wasted because Nigel obviously stepped back into campaign mode and cancelled his meeting. And so there was this opportunity to fill void. And that's where obviously Rupert Lowe came in. And then the suggestion came from Channel 7, who I had given the contact of Tommy Robinson to. They lined it all up. They paid for the studio, or the room that we rented there was £700 to get that for a couple of hours. They paid for the security. And, you know, Pauline felt very uncomfortable about going into Luton. And I must just say, I was in the back seat of the car with Liam Bartlett. And, you know, even he acknowledged that Luton, in his words, the only thing missing from it was camels. Now, you can take that as you please, but even he recognised the vast change that has happened to many of these cities across London because of uncontrolled immigration and the wrong type of immigration that's come into that country. It's no longer Great Britain, it's just Britain.
So when we talk about immigration, when we talk about monoculture, when there's the conversation and the very attempts to spin what you are talking about, do you feel that the party gets on to sticky paper, or is it solid ground because the polls constantly have told us what Australians think about all of these issues and how deeply they value their own culture?
I think, to be clear, Paul, monoculture means being on Team Australia. You've used the phrase before. Yep. We use it regularly. Perhaps monoculture is a little difficult to understand, but I don't want cultures where teen marriages are occurring, or first cousins are marrying each other, or Sharia law takes precedence over that of one common law for Australians. I don't want to see that disharmony in our country, and that's where I think Pauline Hanson and One Nation have it very clear. We do want one culture in this country, and that's
interesting, isn't it? There's a lot of questions out of that for me. So let's start with this. Let's start with the monoculture versus multiculture. You have to be extremely lacking in IQ not to understand the difference of what that means. It doesn't matter what Pauline would have said at the press club that day. They would have attacked her for it, because for the media, that's fertile ground. They want to call her a racist. So Pauline's fighting against mass immigration. So that's the perfect attack line to call her a racist. So yeah, monoculture. This is the thing that the mainstream media and the politicians rely on. They hope you haven't watched the whole press club address or the whole interview, so they can slander their opponent. All right, who's challenging them for government, come from nowhere. So in the press club, before she talked about monoculture, Pauline gave a clear description of immigrants coming into the country, still able to be keeping their connections to their past company, still able to be having different racial cultures and racial identities and all that. But then she said they would then have to accept that Australia is a monocultural society, not a multicultural society. So nothing would change in many aspects of what we're doing, except for the acceptance that Australia has a unique culture, and if you come to this country, you have to embrace it, you have to defend it, you have to live by it. And we pretty much live by a lot of what we're doing now, but we get rid of this term multicultural. And I think that would be a magnificent advancement for this country. Multicultural tells people, and our Premier said it, Jacinta Allen said, as an Indian, you can come here and be an Indian. Okay, what, you're living in Australia? If you want to immigrate here, if you want to become an Australian citizen, you need to become an Australian. You can't keep being an Indian. There's a country for that. It's called India. It's like it can't continue being Chinese. There's a country for that, Chinese. China and India are very different to Australia and Australian culture. They don't have our same heritage. They don't have the same beginnings. They don't have, the same tolerance that we have in this country for other cultures, people of different backgrounds. We have that here. So what is so wrong with accepting an Australian culture? Now, you can argue until you're out of breath about whether monoculture is the correct term. I actually like it because it's a distinct difference from multiculture. You can't make it more distinct. One's multi, one's mono. But whether you want to call it Australian culture or not, if you call it Australian culture, then they'd get stuck in you. Doesn't matter what you call it. They're going to get into it. So that's number one. It's a stupid debate, but the media and the major parties want that debate because they think in their own mind, which I think kind of stupid, that is going to bring the poll numbers down on Pauline Hanson. They're going to try all sorts of things to attack Pauline over the next 2 years. She's a tough nut. She'll cop it. But whether they're successful or not will be interesting. They do need to get more people around her. If you want to be an alternative government, and Pauline said this, you've got to have a team around you. It would be to their enormous benefit to have more people around Pauline like right now, legitimate people to take on cabinet positions, to form a ministry, so they can get rid of the attack line that she'll, as Angus Taylor stupidly put it, should be a disaster for Australia. I can't believe the major parties are actually taking that attack line, because there's plenty of evidence over the last 50 years that both Liberal and Labor have been a disaster for this country. So if you want to go down that road, go. I hope James Ashby and their strategists have got something to kick back, because there's plenty of fertile ground to hit back at the LNP and ALP. So I hope they're ready for that. But the other thing that really sparks my interest there is, why did they allow Channel 7 to organise that trip? I'm curious that they're working in cahoots with the media networks that have religiously condemned her. And especially with someone like Liam Bartlett. It's not like Liam Bartlett doesn't have a history of these sort of stitch-ups. I mean, he's a low individual that he's like your Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. He'll say and do anything to get ratings. Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens will say anything to get clicks. And, don't forget, Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, especially Tucker Carlson, have a background in this media industry about ratings. So they will say or do anything. And the alarm bell should have been up. So James Ashby, Pauline's getting a lot of flack about that interview with Tommy Robinson. But James Ashby, by his own admission, was the person who gave them Tommy Robinson's number. That in itself is a miscalculation that has led to I think it was good that she went to Luton. I think it was good that she interviewed Tommy Robinson. But she has copped a lot of flack for it. And there was always going to be that chance. She needs to stand up for that sort of thing. To see what England's going through now, when they're a lot further advanced on the mass immigration issue, I think would have been good for any politician. There should be ALP politicians going and witnessing that. There should be LNP politicians going and witness that. It was interesting in the whole interview, and here's the thing, I watch these interviews. It was interesting in the whole interview, Tommy Robinson asked the question of Liam Bartlett, and he said, after seeing what you've seen at Luton, would you like a Australian town to become mini Pakistan? There was no answer to that question. I can say it. No, I don't. I want it to be an Australian town. Australian outback towns have such a massive part of our heritage and history. They're magnificent. So one of the best things you can do in Melbourne, one of the things we couldn't do over COVID, was to get out of the city and go for a road trip to, a country town in Victoria for me, or anywhere else in Australia. That's where our heritage was built from. The farming land, the famous sheep industry, and even mining towns. So to get out of the major cities and go into the countries and the outback is brilliant in Australia. That's what it was all about. That's where a lot of our history came from. So it's interesting that James Ashby was the one who instigated the Tommy Robinson. Now, he gave him the number. So he's instigated it. Yeah, Channel 7 happily ran with it, but that's an own goal, and you should own that own goal, which is fine, for someone like me. But the media are going to always use that, and they have Piers Morgan, Andrew Bolt, all the ones, they've all been saying he's a thug and he's this. Tommy Robinson's no thug. I mean, if you want to go, did he do stupid things in his youth? Yes. Did we all do stupid things in our youth? Yes. Tommy, as he said in the interview, he's no saint. He was raised in a hard area, experienced a hard life, and he made mistakes, as would have any young man brought up in the same environment as Tommy Robinson. We all have skeletons in our closet. It's what he's done since then. Has he turned his life around? Now, if you look at the fights he's had against mass immigration and radical Islam and the reasons he's gone to jail for those stances, he's a political warrior, just in the same way. Is Tommy Robinson Nelson Mandela? Not yet. Not saying he can't be. If he helps turn around England from where it is now, I think he would be acknowledged as it, for example. But Nelson Mandela went to jail for his political beliefs. Tommy Robinson went to jail for his political beliefs. They've both been released from jail. So what's the difference? You put Nelson Mandela up on a pedestal. He fought against oppression of the black Africans in South Africa. Tommy Robinson is fighting against what he perceives as the oppression of the white Anglos in England. Now, was there the same sort of repression? No. Will there be? Potentially, if they don't start doing something to reverse it. So the future will decide all that. But, they want to, and don't forget, Nelson Mandela also had a criminal record before he went to prison. That's why he went to prison. Now, was he set up? Yeah, he was. So, but they don't hold that against Nelson Mandela, but they do hold that against Tommy Robinson. So, the media are a bunch of hypocrites. They're double standards, as are politicians. They will jump all over anything and say and do anything to try and hold on to the levers of power. And like I said yesterday, I hope James Ashbury, I hope Barnaby Joyce, I hope Pauline herself, I hope they're all aware of the potential with the hate speech laws, that if they are legitimately leading in the polls and threatening to become government, where the elbow will go down the road of under those hate speech laws, like they did with the White Australia Party, and ban them. And I've got no doubt there will be that going through the minds of several strategists inside both the Liberal and ALP parties right now. They will have a step-by-step process on how to bring Hanson and One Nation down, and I've got no doubt that might be the ultimate step for them to go. If you're not thinking that, then you're a fool. You've got to be thinking for every contingency that they're going to come at you at to try and tear you down so you can have a counter-narrative. So what's concerned me a lot about this Tommy Robinson thing is not that they met with Tommy Robinson, it's the counter narrative. So it was good to hear from Ashby and push that. The other concern for me, and I've never trusted this bastard, and I know there's a lot of you out there that might, but Nigel Farage, why did he cancel that meeting? I mean, you can't tell me he couldn't find an hour or so to meet with Pauline. That just doesn't wash with me. And he's another one. Is it because Pauline has acknowledged Tommy Robinson and supported him in the past? Don't forget, Pauline also went to jail. Pauline was also set up. Pauline came out of jail and has gone on to bigger and better things in the same way Tommy Robinson has. Pauline's had the media against her from day one. Tommy Robinson's had the media against him from day one. So they share a lot of commonalities. So I think it was good for her to meet him. But they should have been prepared with a counter narrative to what they were going to get. Excuse me. I'm not too sure they were as prepared as they should have been. So anyway, one of the features I thought I'd go through this, I'm going to be doing it a little bit moving forward. I'm going to be a bit cheeky with the podcast, is I'm going to be doing what I call the empty seat interviews. I'm getting a lot of people who having a crack, and others who I've invited on that just won't reply or won't come on, probably because they think they're well above what we're doing, to don't know. They can answer for themselves. But you invite, and get people on, and they acknowledge you, and they want to come on. And this is across the board. So the One Nation leadership in Victoria, as I pointed out yesterday, won't come on. I don't know, for whatever reason, they won't get a bigger supporter or a better interview than me, which they could then put on their social media. I looked at the One Nation website, Facebook page yesterday, and they need some content. I can't believe, 18 weeks. I want One Nation to do well. I want to give them a good interview. I want to give them a good run, a good say. And they can put that interview then up on their Facebook page. I deal in website design, SEO. SEO, search engine optimization, so you get higher in your Google searches. You need articles that link to websites. You need, especially video interviews and articles, you need to get them up there. So I don't know who the IT people are behind One Nation in Victoria. I don't know whether it's separate. I don't know whether they're controlled by the headquarters of One Nation by Pauline and James Ashby. I don't know what's going on. No, neither would anybody else in this state. So get on here and have an interview and tell us what the hell's going on. You've got a chance to do really well this election. If it keeps going the way it's going, if you're going to at the last moment announce who your leader is and who your opposition Treasury spokesperson is and who your opposition education person is, I don't think Victorians are going to fall for that. I think you're going to continue losing votes as we get closer to the election. And you've got both, and I don't really like either of them, Jacinta Allen and Jess Wilson, out with their teams at the moment, making the argument. And good on them for doing that. I don't agree with a lot of their arguments, but at least they're out there making them. So we need that from One Nation in Victoria. Federally, they're making their arguments. But even federally, like I said before, I think they need more people involved. They need to make this a legitimate opposition and a legitimate opportunity to win government. I'm just wondering whether that's their goal. I'm not too sure. They seem to be content with the high polls and getting more people into the parliament. Well, that means you got to go another 3 to 4 years before you have a chance at government. I mean, opportunities, this is what I know from business. Opportunities only present themselves only so often. And One Nation has that opportunity right now. It should be grabbing it with both hands. We keep getting told they've got these plethora of candidates, these highly qualified candidates. Well, I hate to be critical because good on him for putting his hand up. But if their candidate in Flinders was an example of the plethora of high-quality candidates, I'm starting to question their selection process then, the vetting process, because he wasn't impressive. He wasn't impressive at all. He could be the nicest guy on the planet. He could be a great operator for business, but he doesn't come across as impressive or someone you're going to want in your parliament. And they lost that by-election. They should have been a big chance at winning that by-election in Flinders. They did all right, but they didn't win it. And this is my concern with One Nation and a lot of the minor parties. They just seem to be content to cruise. Harsh criticism, but come on and talk to me about it. And by talking to me, talk to others. But I've also got a few... I'd like to get Avi Yemeni on. Rukshan said he will come on at some stage. What does at some stage mean? Rukshan, if you're listening, anytime, mate. I'm on Monday to Friday now, 9 o'clock. You can join me anytime you like. I'm on Tuesday nights, 8 o'clock tonight. So I've got 6 sessions now locked in all week. Feel free to come on. And if you look at every single one of my other interviews, when I have the Big J crew on, we give everyone a chance to speak, probably ridiculously slow. So our Big J crew, we've had 5.5 hour episodes, which is kind of insane when you think about it. But we let everyone speak. We let everyone have their opinion. We let everyone put their argument across. So, there's no point on that. Then you have what you would call, I don't know whether you call them trolls. There's one gentleman, I won't say his name yet, but I'm going to use him in the chair. He's very pro-Israel. which is fine. So I'm the defender of Israel, very pro the Jewish community, which is fine. So am I. But I always get a bit concerned when you're such an acolyte. If you don't understand that word, look it up. You're such an acolyte, and there's lots of acolytes in politics on both sides of the aisle. But it just doesn't also, it's not a word that can also attach to politics. It can be a football team. It can be a country. It can be a city, for example. And basically, you treat it like a cult. You can't find any criticism of that individual or that group that you're supporting. All right? Now, as soon as you become that person and you can't find criticism. So, for example, I'm supporting One Nation, but I've just been critical of them. So you've got to be able to be critical. In business, if I'm, as I am, and as I have done, if in business you're not critical, if you're not prepared to take a critical look at your business and see where you can improve, you'll go bankrupt. It's just that simple. You should be overseeing your business and assessing it all the time. Is it a chance of becoming successful? If you are successful, how do you maintain that success? How do you maintain those cash flows? For example, you can pay your rent, you can pay your staff, and you can make a profit. If you're not keeping an eye on that, if you're not having a critical eye over it all the time, and make criticisms where they're required, your business will then go the other way where it can't pay the rent, it can't pay the wages, and you go bankrupt because your cash flow doesn't meet your expenses. I mean, it's not rocket science. So the same thing comes in when you're looking at your politicians and the governments, and when you're talking geopolitics, you got to say, has Israel done everything right or has Israel done everything wrong? I admire Israel because they're surrounded by 58 Islamic countries that want to wipe them off the face of the earth. And they have one priority, and that's to survive. And they will do and say anything that will help them survive. I get that. You know, it's not an easy job. Pauline Hanson is in the same boat with the major parties in the mainstream media coming at her. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned. But do the Israelis get everything right? No. I've got a lot of Jewish friends, good friends, people who've helped me in my lifetime, but I've also had a lot of Jewish people that I think are total arseholes. You can't be so black and white in all of this as you go. So anyway, this guy, unless you are pro-Israel 100%, and if you say, and you can't say anything critical of them, then you get painted as a Zionist and all, all the normal taglines and all this sort of rubbish. I'm actually, by its definition, a Zionist. I think Israel should be allowed to live in its historical homelands. It is the only democracy in that region. It has actually a lot of other denominations, like Islamic people who decided to stay in Israel. If you read up the history of Palestine, there's those who left because they were convinced that the Israeli government was just going to oppress every other faith. But there's a lot of Arabs that stayed in Israel and became Israeli citizens, and now sit in their courts as judges, work in their police force, in their IDF, and have legitimate lives and careers within Israel. There are Christians who live in Israel and they don't get oppressed despite what Candace Owens and all them might say. They live legitimate lives like they would here in Australia. So, there's a lot of good things about Israel. There obviously would be a lot of negative things. I don't spend my time worrying about it because it's Israel. It doesn't affect me. I'm in Australia. I'm an Australian. But this Mark Rowley guy, I just gave his name. Anyway, Rowley. We'll get on him. We'll give him an empty seat interview. But he goes around and, for example, he's a very big critic of Scott Challen and Sam Bamford because they have their criticisms of Israel. Whoop-de-doo. Who cares? People have criticisms of Russia. People have criticism of China. People have criticisms of the USA, the UK, Spain, France. Every country has its critics. So, big deal. So he made what I thought, yesterday we should be all united in our fight against this Islamophobia initiative by the government. So Mark has gone out and had a crack. Sam Bamford put up a great clip, which I played yesterday, about his concerns with this Islamophobia initiative. And it was a great clip. Good on Sam. I put it on there. I back Sam. Well done. Mark gets on there and starts having a crack. What are you having a crack at about, Mark? Oh, well, he's too late to the show. Why wasn't he doing this earlier? Blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter whether people are too late to the show. And what I pointed out, which I will, when we do the empty seat interview with Mark, I've invited Mark to come on this podcast. Mark won't. Mark likes taking digs at you from behind the keyboard, calls you a coward, calls you all sorts of names, becomes very personal with his insults. And yeah, he gets probably clicks and followers. I'm not really into that. And Mark is still welcome to come on this podcast and have a discussion. Mark won't come out from behind his keyboard and do it. Why is that? And so I will go into more detail on Mark in a later program. I just want to get my ducks in a row with all that and be fair. I don't want to slander the guy. I want to be fair to him. And look, good on him for taking his stance. But what Mark doesn't seem to understand is if you're going to defeat anti-Semitism in this country or anywhere else, you've actually got to bring people on board, not push them away. The Jewish community and their supporters are in the minority in this country. That's a fact. And unless you start changing attitudes in this country in other people that might hold hostile or critical observations of Israel and the Jewish community, you're not solving the anti-Semitic issues. This Royal Commission isn't going to solve a thing. Sorry, it's not going to solve a thing. And all the comment I put in is there were certain groups and individuals from within the Jewish community, not all of them. I have worked within the Jewish community for the Maccabi basketball club. I've got a lot of good friends. Through the whole Palestinian things, I can show, well, I don't want to show their messages because they're from me. If any of them want to come in and vouch for it, if I have to prove it, I will. I've sent them message after message after, not message after message, I've sent them multiple messages to support them through what they were going through with the Palestinian protests, because it was a horrendous time for them. There was Jewish students going into university and they had to go with these pro-Palestine protests, preaching hatred against their community. That's tough for anybody, and especially when you consider the history of the Jewish community for the last 100 years in particular. That's a very tough thing for them to tolerate. And I witnessed it firsthand, how tough for young people. I'm talking people from 15 to 25. They're the ones I was working with. It's a very tough thing for them to have to go through. And then other communities go through similar extremes. None of it should be happening. As a Christian, you shouldn't be going down that road, but we do. We're human beings. So anyway, to dilute that, to turn the tables, you've got to bring people with you. So you've got to have that discussion with Sam Bamford, and you've got to have that discussion with Scott Challen. Now, they might disagree with you, but I put this on the program a while ago, and one of the reasons I do this podcast is if I can reach out and reach one person, then it's worth it, because that one person might reach out, and it might be a lot better than me, and they might reach 100. And then those hundreds might reach out, and away you go. It becomes a momentum. The momentum behind it becomes very strong. That's the way the Palestinian rallies have gone on. You might disagree with them, but you've got to actually respect the fact that they've won the PR war to this point. Doesn't mean they have to keep winning it. But when you've got idiots, and I call him an idiot, sorry, Mark, I do think you're low IQ. When you've got an idiot like Mark going around and attacking everybody who could be an ally and pushing them away and making them rethink, well, if they're going to be like Mark, maybe there's a lot to this Palestinian protests and this anti-Israel thing. You're not pushing people away from anti-Semitism, Mark. You're pushing people towards it. You don't seem to understand that. And you can't be so partisan with your approach. Now, my point, and don't forget, this guy trolls people like Scott and Sam and has a crack at them all the time. I've gone onto his feeds twice in probably 6 months, and apparently now I'm trolling him. And I liked his content to begin with, and I still a lot of his content I do like. So I did give him a follow because he followed me. Both had high following. So if you look at my following count, I think I follow about 3,000 people. When I first started, I used to do the old, you follow me, I'll follow you. So I did all that. But then after a while, I was just getting follows and there was just too many. So I didn't bother with it anymore. I just felt when people want to follow me, they can follow me. And I won't go the follow you, follow back thing. I'll just look at the content I like, and if I think it's worth following, I'll follow, like everyone should. So I followed Mark there for a while, and I still follow him. I'm not going to block him. I'm not a big blocker of people. I find that a bit cowardly, unless people are being, really vile and, or worse, it's just a pointless argument. They're just getting on to have an argument. Yeah, and that point, and they'll say anything and do anything to provoke an argument. I'm not into that, so I'll block those. But I don't get into it too often. So I've never blocked Mark, even though he's had his share of cracks at me. But there was one I remember the first time. So I've only had 2 cross swords with him twice, yesterday and back when I interviewed Scott Challen. And he got on there and he started having a crack at me for daring to interview Scott Challen. And I thought, well, I interview everyone. I've got no problem with interviewing people. I have Daniel on my Big J. He's a Jew. And he's good. He puts forward the Jewish perception, and he's very strong and passionate about it. I have Ben, who's a groper. I have Rami in our Big J group. He's an Assyrian immigrant. We have great conversations. And we all come from diverse backgrounds, and we all look at them. Mark wouldn't even engage in that conversation because he sees Ben as a groper who's anti-Jew, anti-Israel. That's what he sees. I don't see Ben that way. And because of if you look at the conversation, Ben might be that way. But maybe when I've got Ben on, and we talked about this, the last thing, maybe me and Daniel and Rami, who are defenders of Israel and the Jewish community, especially Daniel actually, but Rami is too. But for example, me and Rami can also find failures in the Israeli government, just like we can find failures in the Australian government. So you've got to be able to look at the good and the bad. And everybody and everything. I've got plenty of good and bad in my life. Mark can't do that. So when he was asking me, he brought up a guy called Bender. I didn't even know who the hell Bender was. I do now. And I've invited Bender on the show. My God. As long as you're not going to spread violence, and as long as you're not going to come at me or anybody else, and as long as we can have a sensible discussion, I'll speak to anybody. And that's the way it should be. I'm not going to do a Piers Morgan and load a committee against one person and gang up on them. I'd much actually rather a one-on-one interview where we can discuss what it is that person is passionate about and why they're passionate about it and some of the criticisms maybe surrounding it. So at the moment is Paul Nation. So I'm going to have some of those empty, sorry for taking so long with it. I'm going to have some of those empty chair interviews with people who refuse to come on the podcast, but will throw sledges my way from behind the keyboard, So I'd suggest to anybody, I don't know why you wouldn't, but I get it. Some people are uncomfortable. Maybe this guy, Mark, he can't really handle himself properly on a podcast. I don't know. No, I never thought I could either. I'm not too sure I really do. So if you want to come on and cross swords, do it with me. That will be free. Everyone I'll invite, but if you don't want to do it, I'll also do an empty chair interview, which I'm going to do with Mark. I'm going to put up the post he shared with me. They're in public now, and we'll go through it. And Mark got pissed off with me yesterday, and I'll stand by this, is I think too many people within the Jewish community in the leadership and their organisations pushed for a royal commission into anti-Semitism when they should have pushed for a royal commission instead into radical Islam. And then that would have dealt with anti-Semitism, because the biggest group that are anti-Semitic in our community are radical Islamists. Now, in Mark's thing, it's every Muslim. Okay, I can get that. I can get that argument. I can be open myself up to be convinced to it. I don't at this point believe it. I've met some really good Jewish families. I've also met some really good Muslim people as well. So, and I would invite them to come on and talk to me about it. Let's get to the bottom of it. So it should have been made about radical Islam. It wasn't. So now, because the Liberal Party under Susan Ley was just moronic, we've got these hate speech laws now that are oppressing speech. And now we've got all this Islamophobia nonsense coming to our schools, our security agents in the AFP, our police forces, politicians. It's going to be everywhere. And they're going to have the hate speech laws surrounding anybody who's a critic of Islam. Good job. Well done, everybody who didn't push for a radical Islam Royal Commission, because that's what we needed after Bondi. We didn't need a Royal Commission into anti-Semitism. We needed a Royal Commission into radical Islam. And it's all been about anti-Semitism. They moved the goalpost. Had it been about radical Islam, we could have taken a real good look into where the origins of radical Islam in this country are, and we could have taken real action against future terrorist attacks by anybody that is radicalized by the worst of Islam. We haven't done that. We're looking at anti-Semitism, and we'll come up with the same reasons. Anti-Semitism has been around ever since, centuries and centuries. Since the start of the Jewish faith, there's been anti-Semitism. So millennia, actually, longer than centuries. What am I saying? So it's just kind of, in my book, it's kind of silly. There's always, when I first came down to Melbourne, there was anti-Semitism. I saw it. I heard it in my footy clubs. When I was in the country, we never played a Jewish sporting club. When I came down to Melbourne, and when I was based in Bentley, which is close to Glenora, which is one of the largest demographics of the Jewish community, we would play the Maccabi footy club. I would coach against them. And, it was like the Greeks and the Wogs and the Italians and all that sort of thing. There was different racial conflicts. And, back then, they used to call Jewish people 4x2s. For whatever reason, I don't know why, but that's what they called it. And I actually called it out. I remember at halftime, I ripped into, when we're playing we're playing against the Maccabi team, I warned my junior footy team about any anti-Semitism and not to do it and just play football and show respect. And, I don't want any of their kids being called 4x2s. And my boys turned around to me and said, "What the hell's a 4x2?" And I thought, "Oh, God, Robert, what have you done?" So that is not used anymore, thankfully. But, there are people within the Jewish community that also have intolerances for people from other communities. That's just a fact. I mean, in every community, you have intolerances. But now the biggest intolerance is for people like me, Anglo-white men, heterosexuals. If you're in that group, it's across the board, whether you're in the courts. Look at our AFL football. What do they acknowledge? Do they acknowledge the Indigenous community? They acknowledge the LGBTQI community? I can guarantee you we're going to have an Islam round. Guarantee you. That's coming. But we're not going to have an Anglo round. When was the last time the AFL dedicated a round to Anglo-European history that built this nation, that invented their sport? I mean, for God's sakes, we had the head of Cricket Australia who on Australia Day was going to ban the Australian national anthem. It's all nuts. It's all nuts, and it's all back to front. So anyway, that's enough of my rant. I've had a bit of a rant. Let's have a look in a bit of the news of the day to finish off with. We've got about 10 minutes, so let's see where we're up to. We'll get back on the Twitter feed. First thing in the morning, let's see what's making news. Yeah. This is the program. Our goal is to go for an hour. Have a look at our home feed. Barney Boy. Let's have a listen to Barnaby shouting at his dog.
Where she is taking you.
I think, sit down! Sorry, it's a dog.
With where she is taking you.
That's what's really good.
I think, sit down! Sorry, it's a dog.
Was Barnaby actually yelling at his dog, or had he had enough of this silly woman? I'm not too sure, but he's copped a bit of flack for that. I love my dog, but at different times he drives me nuts. He barks at everything. He barks at the planes, he barks at the neighbours, he barks at the cars, barks at a siren, and I'll yell at him to sit down too. So I'm not too sure about the flack. Pivoton Geelong, well done, Pivoton. He's a good man. Beautiful. Is that your grandkid, mate? Beautiful kid. What a beautiful picture. Daniel from Big J. They never said a thing about Hughesy until his politics changed sides. Now the left are trying to destroy him with the fury of an Iranian mullah to a blasphemer. A tribal cult mentality that punishes our thinking and silences dissent. So true. This bloke is an absolute scumbag, is he? Melanie Bracewell. By the way, first time we met, he pled in one of my classes I used for stage. He what? He peed because he couldn't get out to the bathroom. He does this regularly, and wait staff have to clean it up.
Thank you all so much for coming this morning. I just like...
This is the Greens. What have the Greens got to say? Let's have a listen.
Great. Thank you all so much for coming this morning. I just like to acknowledge that we are on stolen land this morning. Great. Thank you all so much.
You can test
She on
a man's
shit.
character and how he treats animals, and the fact that he was
Oh, here we go.
a man's character and how he treats animals, and the fact that he was so aggressive on
come
live.
on,
Shush.
honestly.
Because he was like that on live TV.
for
To
real?
me, I am for real. That's why I said it,
Ring the
James.
RSPCA.
Well, you know what? Why don't you do that? Okay. So I think it's the character of a person, how they treat an animal. That was very aggressive, right? And if he had an issue with his dog, like you said, he should put him inside, or he should have gone inside. But I think this is just the tip of the iceberg of his character.
Would that be not in sheep
It is a hot
yards?
take, isn't it?
Would that be in sheep yards all around Australia? Is that just like how you yell at
I don't know.
a dog?
A working dog, maybe,
Yeah.
you know, but I'm like you said, I love the clarification. Like, is he yelling at anyone else like that?
That's.
Oh.
I don't even know what to say
Is
to
that
that.
a test of his character? Or is that
Have you ever been on a farm? You've been outside of Sydney?
I come
or-
from a farming family.
Okay, well, you
Have
know.
you? Do you have a callus on your hand?
No.
Have you?
I work in
Exactly.
an office all day.
Exactly.
Good to see you. It's great to be back.
Okay, thank you. It's really good to be.
Is
What a silly point of view. Who the hell is... Barnaby Joyce took an uninspected turn. Oh, this guy's an arsehole. When he abruptly shouted at his barking dog. The moment quickly ignited Deb. And I'm a pet owner. I love my dog. Anyone who's seen me with my dog would know how much I love my dog. But I like Barnaby. Maybe not as quippy as Barnaby. Like I said, this is probably a working dog. And farmers are pretty abrupt. So there we go. Bender. What's Bender got to say? We just mentioned Bender. Pauline was given a pin from... Oh, okay. So Bender's pretty anti-Israel. Given a pin from Oz Lobby. Don't know who the hell Oz Lobby. And ARC support Australia First back policy that helps only Australia and reject foreign political interference. Oh, Oz Lobby is... I'd say Bender would be involved. That's Scott Challen and Sam Banford. Okay, let's read that again. Pauline was given a pin from Oz Lobby and asked to support Australia First. Back policy that helps only Australia and reject foreign political interference. Pauline was given a pin by the Jewish lobby, a bag of cash, and the promise of social media support. Guess which one she went for? Well, we don't know that. I mean, seriously, these are the silly arguments. Sorry, Bender. I can respect a lot of what you say. Don't do that. Pauline has been a supporter of Israel. Pauline went into an Islamic school who she's quite critical of Islam. When she went into that meeting, she picked it early, and they handpicked 3 female students, not male students, and they put one of them in the full face covering, which they knew would be offensive to Pauline. My bet is Pauline's worn that one because she was going to stand up for what she believed in. So I think you're a bit harsh there, Bender, to be honest. Here's another one I've invited onto my podcast, Marco. He seems a young guy. I don't know. You've got to be careful with these guys. He's been putting up some decent posts, and I think I've given him a follow. I am following because of those initial posts, but I've noticed he's been very critical of One Nation lately. And what I've found over the journey is you've got to be careful when you follow people. I'd say, Marco, I have a question mark over, because every time One Nation drops just slightly in the polls, which if you've been around as long as I have, you know the polls bounce. They go up and down and whatever. The polls have been going long enough now with One Nation polling strongly to show that this is not just a one-off. This is actually a bit of a trend for people looking to move away from the major parties. If Marco's a young guy, he has a strange approach to the major parties. He seems to be either liberal or he seems to be anti-Labor, which is fair enough, but he seems to be holding on to the Liberal Party. Mate, the Liberal Party's dead. Sorry, they're not going to split and break away the moderates and the Conservatives. That's the only way you can save it. They, dead as a doornail, people like Jane Hume and Andrew Bragg and Julian Lesser aren't going to let go. They should leave and form the Teal Party and lead the Conservatives to either try and reinvigorate the Liberal Party, or better, merge with One Nation and give One Nation that legitimate opposition party to government that could win government. If you had every Conservative jump ship and go join One Nation, they would have that opposition cabinet that I was talking about previously, and they would become the official opposition in Parliament for the next 2 years. But they won't do that because they're all attached to their own little seats of power.
Good evening. With real concerns of an imminent attack.
Exactly what I told you would be happening, Pauline Hanson. Islamists have taken over Australian jails.
Good evening. With real concerns of an imminent attack.
Islamic State beheadings and instructions on how to...
Oh, no, this is 20 minutes. We're not going to watch that. There was a report that Islamic gangs have taken over the running of our jails, which wouldn't surprise me. What else have we got? We'll go into our bookmarks. Oh, yes. God. What? There was a welcome to the country at Jaron Hitch's funeral. Is that serious?
If you like the Odyssey, I have news for you, and you might want to sit down for this. If you like the Odyssey, I have news for you, and you might want to.
So the Odyssey is this new Christopher Nolan film. It's caused a bit of controversy, and there's been mixed reviews. Some have said it's great. Some have said it's not. Let's have a listen to what RFK says.
Research and found out that the producers marketed it towards gay men and cowards specifically. So if you ended up liking it, there's no easy way to say this, but go ahead and call your dad and let him know you're a bigger Fruit Loop than Toucan Sam. As we all know, Hollywood exists so clinically insane people and big gay wads can congratulate each other for producing increasingly bizarre anti-Western propaganda. That's it. If you like the Odyssey.
I reckon that's a great place for us to finish. Well done, RFK. Oh, that is so good. RFK Jr. I do like him. He's come out with some classics going forward. So anyway, like I said, I think that's a great way for us to finish. It was more of a rant today than anything else. Hopefully we'll have some more updates going, but we have a good time. I've had a good time on trying to, we've got to stop sharing. And we'll do this every morning, Monday to Friday. I'm on tonight, 8 o'clock. If you can support us through the Buy a Coffee link, it would be greatly appreciated. It's now becoming nearly a part-time sort of role in my business. So I'm taking myself away and doing this from other parts I could be doing that could be generating income. So if there's a dozen people out there that can chip in every now and again, and I'm not asking for a lot, like I said, buy me a cup of coffee. That's a big cup of coffee. So I need a few bucks to fill that. So anything you can do, and listen, even support other podcasts you might follow. I think it more than a click. It does take time. It does take effort, and yes, it costs money. Just to do the podcast for the software I've got costs you probably between $30 and $40 a month. I've tried a different few softwares for the podcast. This I think is the best one I've had. Which is Restream, if you're curious. And it's proved pretty handy for me to get this message out and to get this podcast going. So anything you can do to support us would be great. So from me and JJ, he's amazing, He's got a sixth sense on when I'm finishing up. I don't know whether German Shepherds are incredibly smart. I don't know whether he actually knows what – I actually do sometimes wonder whether he understands totally what I'm saying. But he certainly picks up on the cues when I'm finishing up. He comes right to my feet. And when he knows I'm starting, he goes right on that couch. He's an amazing dog. So anyway, God bless you. God bless your kids. God bless your grandkids. God bless your pets. God bless that flag. God bless this country. Let's get it back. And I will see you tonight at 8 o'clock or tomorrow morning at 9. Anyway, God bless everyone. See you soon.